Hi everyone, welcome to Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, where I share lesson ideas, songs, games, and inspiring things for your elementary music classroom. My name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. This episode of the podcast is a replay containing the audio version of a Musical Mondays live video. If you're not familiar with Musical Mondays, every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I go live on Facebook and Instagram to share about the lessons that I'm using in class with my students. I give a recap of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons, and then do a deep dive about one grade level and share the books, instruments, songs, and process that I use to teach the lesson to kids. This podcast episode contains all the audio from the Musical Mondays video, but if you'd like to see a replay of the video itself, you can find a link to the archived video on YouTube when you click the link in the notes for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's the show. Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Pinterest, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. So tonight I am talking about something a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about how to start looking for jobs, how to start building out your resume, how to start, especially talking about a portfolio. That's coming up in just a minute. Let me get through my little preamble before I get to all of that. I'm very excited to talk about this. So first of all, if you're interested in anything that I talk about tonight in the video, if you're like, where's that link for that thing that he mentioned? On my blog, makemomentsmatter.org, there's a whole tab that says video, and you can find the recap page for this school year. Or if you're watching on Facebook, listening on the podcast, there should be a link in the description for this specific video where you can go directly there. Also, there's a Facebook page called Every Moment Matters, a music education community. Please come and join the conversation. It's an open group for anyone, and it'd be great to have more folks in there to ask questions, answer questions, respond to one another. It's a great place to sort of grow in community. Okay, so, and two more reminders. So in the podcast feed, I am bringing back some podcast episodes I recorded about 4 or 5 years ago, where I interviewed people from all around the world of Orgelwerk. I'm really excited about this because it was just such an amazing series of conversations, and I feel like I learned a lot, and so bringing those conversations back, I hope that you all get a lot out of that. So in the podcast feed, every Wednesday, I've been adding one of those episodes. The last one was with Josh Southard, who is the going to be the new president of the American Orgelwerk Association. Back then, he was not, and but he has some amazing things to say, and some amazing ideas about including more pitch percussion, how to get started on that, like the Orff instruments, the Bard instruments. Lots of great ideas about that. So I hope you'll go and check that out. There's a new episode coming out this Wednesday. And speaking of Orff, next Saturday, so Saturday, February 25th, I will be in basically Boise, Idaho, in Nampa, Idaho, doing a workshop with the Idaho Orff chapter, and that is from 9 to 4. If you are in the area, I hope you will come and join us. Okay, so check out that Orgelwerk podcast series. It comes out every Wednesday on my podcast feed, and then also join us for some real live in-person Orff action in Idaho a week from Saturday, if you're around. Okay, so tonight I'm talking about how to work on your resume, how to build out a portfolio, how to network and try and find jobs. The reason I want to talk about this now, even though it's like February, is now's the time where a lot of people are putting in for retirement. A lot of jobs are coming open because there's like lateral, horizontal, whatever. There's movement within school districts. And so now is the time, actually like a month ago is the time, but it's the time to have your resume and all of your information ready, because if you're going to be looking for jobs, you need to be ready when those jobs post. So I want to talk about some of that now. Part of this is because I've had a couple people ask, like, hey, what do you include in a portfolio? How do you do that? Also, I have a student teacher who's finishing up her placement with me, and we have been talking about it. And so this week and probably next week, I'll be talking about some of these topics. Next week, I hope to talk about interviews and interview questions. So if any of you had particularly amazing or terrible, terrifying interviews where you had some interesting or terrible or terrifying questions, please email those to me, makemomentsmatter@gmail.com, so we can talk about those questions. Or if you're like, oh, wow, this is a great question, or here's my great way to answer this blah, 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 classroom management question. Please put those comments. Please send me those emails. I would love to continue that conversation so that we are all better at interviewing. But that's not today. Today we're talking about getting hired. So if you are like, you know what, I can cut out now because I'm in a job I really like, well, great. But I will say that this video is not just for people who are college students. It's not just for people who are looking for jobs. I think it's for all of us, because I was with my in-laws this last weekend and they're like, hey, how's your job? And I was like, it's great. I really love it. I love my principal. But so much of what we do in elementary is dependent upon our location or a situation or a principal or the school community. And sometimes, like if your principal takes a district level job or moves or something and you get a new principal who's not great, that can drastically affect what happens with you and with your students. And so I think it's smart for all of us at all times to just be thinking about what do I need to do to make myself marketable? What do I need to do to keep up my resume? What do I need to do to make sure that I am ready in case, a life thing happens and I have to move across the country? I'm someone who, when I was growing up, I grew up in a family of teachers, and there was this unspoken sort of thing, you find a place and you plant yourself there and you're there for a long time. And oh my gosh, my 5th grade teacher was at my school for over 50 years. He's the longest tenured teacher at one school district in the state of Nebraska. So but those are the examples to grow up with. You find a job and you stay in that job. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true today, but also I know personally that sometimes things happen and you make changes. I got a job here in Kansas City right out of graduate school, right out of college, and I was like, I love this job. It's amazing. And then family stuff happened and we moved to Michigan, and we're in Michigan for a couple years, and then my partner got a job in Georgia and we moved to Georgia, and then the pandemic happened and other stuff happened and we moved back to Kansas. And so I know that I love to be in a place and plant myself and build a program and put down roots, but sometimes life takes you in different directions. Anyway, all that to say, don't tune out this podcast even if you're like, you know what, I don't know, because some of the things that we're talking about might be really helpful, or it might spark an idea, or you might end up with a student teacher next semester and it'd be good to have this conversation with them. So anyway, just all that to say, stick around. Okay, so if you're getting hired, so maybe you're right out of college, maybe you're moving to a new place, to a new state, maybe you just want movement, you're not happy in your school, or maybe your school's closing, or maybe, I don't know, there are all sorts of reasons that you could be looking for a different job. Maybe you want to have a job with less responsibility. Maybe you want more time. Maybe you're part-time and you want a full-time job. There are a lot of reasons to look, but before you can get that job, you have to know the job is coming available. And there are a couple ways to do that. If you are new to an area, you can look up all the school districts you're interested in. You can start searching by job listing, by the different districts. That's a way to do it. And that is the official way to do it, right? That's the official way to do it. But I would say so much of job placement, job movement happens because you have a network that supports you. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have a network that is there to help you find a job, they're going to say, oh my gosh, okay, so Denise is going to be retiring. She's been talking about it for a couple years and she's finally decided to do it. She has not put in her notice yet, but you need to have your materials ready because when that job posts, it's going to go like that. And so have your stuff ready and I'll vouch for you. I'll get you a letter. That's what happens when you have a network. People who know will know and they will tell you and they'll say, you should apply for this. So you need to have a network. That's the first thing. How do you build that network? If you're in college, if you're new to an area, how do you build that network? There are a couple ways. If you are just friends with teachers, teachers are friends with teachers. So reach out and say like, hey, I know that you work at Starside. Do you know anyone who knows someone at blah, blah, blah? Or like, I work here, or I have friends, or my sister-in-law. Or like, if you can work those connections, work those connections. Find people, meet people, get to know people. Send that awkward, hey, hi, my name is so-and-so. I just wanted to send you a quick Facebook message because I heard that you're working in blah, 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 and I want to know more about. Reach out. The music community is a small community. Probably if I know someone, they might know this other person that I worked with, or I student taught with, or I had a friend. And the music world is small. So reach out, ask questions, just try and make friends that way. Try and find friends in the district in which you want to apply, because they're going to know quicker and faster and better about any jobs that are actually coming up. Reach out to your student teaching mentor, or if you are student teaching, have that person reach out to their friends. I know if my student teacher were like, hey, I really want an elementary job, I would be on the phone, on the thing, asking out all, hey, does anyone know blah, 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 because I want the person who has been with me, who I know and I trust, I want them to find a job. Probably I want them to find a job in my district. And if that's not possible, I want them to find one close to me. So reach out to your... And here's the tragic moment where Facebook cut out for no apparent reason. So let me try and stitch in the rest of the conversation that I had after a frantic, 30 seconds trying to figure out how to turn Facebook Live back on. Facebook, stop changing things. Okay, here's the rest of the conversation. Okay, so you need to network. How to network? Like I said, first find friends in your district. Reach out to your student teaching mentor. Make connections any way you can. Another great way to make connections if you're looking for jobs, if you're looking for ways to get in a district, is go to your local ORF chapter, your local Kodai chapter, your local MEA, your Music Education Association. Whatever you can do, go to one of those local workshops and make friends. Don't be the person who sits in the corner like, I'm only taking notes and checking my phone. Don't do that. Be the person who's like, hey, hi, my name is so-and-so. I just moved here and I'm looking for a new gig. And oh my gosh, do you know of anything? I'm really excited about being here. Those people want to help you. Literally all those local ORF chapters and local MEAs, they want you to make connections. They want you to get a good job. They want you to be happy in your job. So when you're at those places, reach out, make connections. How can you find them? I put a link on my blog on the links page about finding local ORF chapters, because there's an easy way to do that no matter where you are, to find them, to make connections and reach out. If you can't go to a workshop, if there's a conflict or whatever, email those people and say, hey, I'm going to be moving to the area. I'm new to the area, blah, blah, blah. I really want to find a gig. What can you help me? I remember when I moved initially from Kansas City to Michigan, I was like, I know no one there. I am not going to get a job. It was very tricky. The place we were at, we're moving to Lansing, and in Lansing, 2 years before we moved there, the Lansing School District cut all elementary art and PE and music jobs. All of them. And I was like, I'm never going to get a job. And I remember my friend Jennifer, who I did levels with here in Kansas, reached out to one of her best friends, Amy, who teaches in Lansing. And through the connections in the ORF chapter, I found a gig that opened up and I found a job. It was great. So reach out, make those connections. That's a great way to do it. I would also say if you're looking for a job, don't just look at one specific job, one specific district, one specific area. Broaden your search. Make yourself more marketable. Find different places. Sometimes you'll interview and it won't work, or you'll put in your resume and it won't work, but maybe it'll get picked up in another place. Just put it out into the universe, try and get it out there, and don't limit yourself to I must teach in this one neighborhood, because then it's going to be very hard to get a job. Widen your scope, and maybe if you're like, okay, I have to drive 35 minutes, I don't really like it, I'm not sure, but maybe if you get a job, then in a couple years you could move to a different school or whatever. Maybe you'll end up loving that job. Who knows? Anyway, just keep looking. And I would say apply everywhere. But not just apply for open jobs. Anywhere you go in a district you're interested in, a lot of times they have potential open position, right? It'll say elementary music teacher, assumed, or potential, or whatever. It could happen. Put in your resume, put in your stuff, put in all that information, because if you have it there, then it's accessible. A lot of times a job will come open, it'll get posted, and like that night, the principal will be like, well, who's an applicant that we can look at? Because they're impatient. I don't know. They want to do other stuff. I get it. But like get on, make sure that your application is in, even if it's not for like a specific job, like be in the system. Because especially if like you put in your application, it's like, hey, actually, we need your transcripts before you can become official. Then you'll know that. But if you're like, oh, the job's open right now, and then you go to apply and it's like they need you to do some like aptitude test or some sort of like online whatever, or you have to do a pre-screening or whatever before you can actually be considered for a job, go figure that all out now in the district you're interested in before the actual job posts that you want to apply for, because it would be so terrible if the job posts, you're a great applicant, you think you could be considered, and then you have to jump through hoops, and then by the time you jump through all those, you've missed the window. That'd be terrible. So go apply in those places now. Okay, when you're putting your resume, when you're doing your cover letter, all of that, tailor it to the job you are applying for. I had somebody reach out to me and was like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe doing elementary or maybe beginning band. I'm not sure. I'm open to possibilities. What should I put in my portfolio? Well, that's tricky because you want any potential employer to think that you are only applying for their job. Like you want them to think like, oh my gosh, I really, 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 really want this beginning band job. When really maybe you're like, I'd be okay with beginning band or elementary. Or maybe I like middle school. I'm open to whatever. I just want a job. I don't know. Maybe that's your mentality. But you want the principal who is going to hire you or is looking to hire someone to think that like, you only want to be at their school. So that means when you do your resume, when you do your cover letter, you sort of need to tailor it for what you're going to do. So if you're applying for elementary jobs, your resume and everything needs to reflect that. If you're applying for band jobs, your resume and everything else needs to reflect that. So what are the differences? If it's elementary, you really want to talk about your experience teaching elementary students, any sort of field experience or teaching experience you've had, any sort of awards, accolades, all sorts of stuff related to that. If it's beginning band, you want it to reflect like, oh, here is my band experience. Here are my places teaching and whatever that's band related. Here's, or if you're applying for a middle school job, then say like, oh my gosh, I did these sectionals in the summer for the middle school. I've been recruiting with the blah, blah, blah. You want them to think that you have great experience and you are absolutely tailored for their job. So sometimes that means reworking your resume or cover letter or whatever. And that's a pain. But if you want to get that job, you got to do that work. Put in your resume, put it all out there. Now, portfolio. What can you include in a portfolio in case you get an interview? I would say this is like lots of extra work and it is stressful, but I can attest to it having helped me. A digital portfolio is a beautiful, wonderful, fantastic thing to have. Yes, it is more work, but it is worth it. Why? Because I remember when I moved from Michigan to Georgia, I had an online portfolio. It was at the top of my resume. And also when I submitted my resume, I knew there was a job opening. I emailed the principal and said, hey, I'm so excited. I've just applied for the job, but I wanted to also forward you my information just in case, because I'm out of state. I wanted to make sure that you got it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, here's my resume, cover letter, and also my online teaching portfolio. And I got a call from her the next day, 2 days later, I don't remember. And she was like, oh my gosh, I looked at your website. It's really cool. Not like makemomentsmatter.org, not like my blog. I created a free website through Weebly, and I included a bunch of things. What was on there? All the stuff that I thought an administrator would want to see. So I included concert stuff, like previous concerts. What was in the concert? How was it special to my school? Why did we do it a certain way? Maybe photos, pictures, videos. I included examples and artifacts. I included ideas about teaching. What are the things that I teach? Well, I teach instruments, and we sing, and we compose, and we whatever, and here are examples of those things. I included some lesson samples. Things of like, here's an actual lesson I've taught, or here's a link to a blah, blah, blah that you might be interested in. I included a little bit of philosophy. I included a page with like, here's where I graduated from college. And I even took the time to like find the logo from that school. Because sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, I know that school. I've seen that logo before. Sometimes that's really helpful. Included my certifications. I included any sort of award I've gotten that pertained to my job. But all of that was on a digital portfolio that I could just send a link to someone. And there also was my contact information and my previous address and my resume and all of that stuff. And I'm going to link that here on the links page in case you're interested in like, what does that look like? But for me, sending that out, especially when I didn't live in the state, it gave them a way to see me, pass the paper. They saw me, they saw my classroom, they saw kids smiling. They could sort of envision what it would look like if I worked at their school. What would concerts, how would he adapt? Well, here are some ways he's adapted it in the past. How is he going to do integration with non-musical subjects? Well, here's a concert he put on that's sort of STEM related, STEM related. Okay, well, what does it look like if blah, blah, blah? Well, here's his... It gave them all of that. They could sort of see it and in their own time, sort of peruse and look through. If you have a physical portfolio that you take to an interview, that only works if you get an interview, so they won't see it otherwise, and it only works if they take the time to look through it. And when you're interviewing, they don't have time. So that's why I think an online portfolio is so great, because you can send it to them, they can look at it, they can get all that information and sort of see it in their own time. Okay, so tonight, what did I talk about? Oh, well, I'm going to give you the link to that portfolio. My portfolio is cdavidteach.weebly.com. Easy peasy for a principal to find that, or I can just send them the link. I also link that on the links page. But what does that do? It gives them a chance to see me, to learn more about me, to learn all that stuff. If you're interested, go check it out. You could sort of see how I formatted it, see like what I included, why maybe I included that. All the information is old. It's my information from when I lived in Georgia. The website itself is 3 years old. But if I needed to in a pinch, I could go and update, boom, 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 and I would be ready for a new job if I wanted to apply again. What did I talk about tonight? Talk about finding connections, making connections. Go to those local ARC chapters. Reach out. Send emails. Make phone calls. Try and reach out and find people in the area where you want to teach. Ask them if they know of any jobs coming open. Ask them if their advice about where to apply, how to apply. Make all those connections. That's super valuable. Tweak and change and reset your resume, your cover letter, all of that to be exactly for the job you're applying for. Make sure your resume is in the system, in the official system as soon as possible, because you never know what hoops you're going to have to jump through. And if you don't have your application in the system, they cannot consider you. And finally, think about a portfolio, especially think about a digital portfolio. And check out my digital portfolio if you're interested to sort of see what is included there. Okay. All of this was like pre-job stuff. So many jobs are coming open now or will be in the next few weeks and months. So next week I'm going to try and talk about interviews, interview questions, how to handle interviews, things like that. So I would love if you have a list of questions that you prepare with, or if you have, hey, this was a really weird question, I don't know how to answer it, here's my thoughts on it, or you're like, what do you think? Please send me questions, send me interview stories. I would love to include all of that so that we can all become better interviewees. And maybe if you're like, I sat in on an interview for my replacement at a school, or I got to see whatever, I'd love to know more of that so that we can include all that in the conversation. Sorry, Facebook, that there was technical issues and it cut out and cut back in. I'm so sorry. I hope that you got to hear some of this, but I'm going to try and piece it together as much as I can and put on the podcast. Thanks, Instagram, for just chilling for that minute and a half while I had to make that work. But send me those questions for next week for talking about interviewing. I hope this was helpful. And if you're like, I have a student teacher, send them to this episode. Or if you're like, I hope this is super helpful. I hope that we can make this a really valuable resource. So anyway, thanks so much, everyone, for coming along and trying to listen with me tonight. I'll see y'all next week. Bye, everyone.